You know, I was here as a witness today. Usually I'm here as a lawyer when I come to court. And I can tell you that trying to predict what a judge is going to do or trying to assess how a hearing went is near impossible. It's not like a ball contest, like a football contest where you get a score. It's a little bit like waiting for election returns to come in. We did what I think we had to do. Obviously, there's a legal process that we have to go through. We had, and we felt it was very important to build a factual record today. There's been a lot of media commentary about this whole process. This is the first time all of us had to testify under oath. I will tell you what jumped out to me. We were in court for about 3 hours today. At no point in 3 hours did the lawyer for the Alabama Democratic Party or any single witness for the Alabama Democratic Party offer a principled distinction between myself and other people who've gone before the executive board to get a waiver. We heard the argument, well, he just didn't do as good a job in the hearing as the rest did. That's pretext to me. If this were a hearing over whether a teacher ought to be fired, and the teacher were saying, well, I did the same thing other teachers did, they're treated differently. And an administrative board were to say, well, we thought that this teacher just didn't sound as good as the other teachers did. The judge would laugh at that. The test is whether or not facts were put in evidence that suggest a reason to distinguish between me and other candidates. All we heard today is, I guess, whatever is the Democratic Party leadership's version of, I saw a shiny object. Well, he just didn't make the case the way the others did. Well, why didn't he make the case? I can't tell you, he just didn't make it. Another thing that jumped out to me, 3 different leaders of the party were here today who sat on the board. And they were asked the question, what does it mean to be an asset to the Democratic Party? It was the ultimate legal standard. 3 different explanations. 3 different explanations of a simple word, the word asset. So this is a process that has allowed everybody else in the door, except for one person. You didn't hear the Democratic Party say, well, we've looked at a variety of people over a number of years. Some make it, some don't make it. If you believe the testimony of the witnesses today, in the 32-year history of this rule, the one person who has not managed to make a case happens to be me. I don't buy that. Hopefully the judge won't buy it, but more fundamentally, legally, they failed to articulate differences between me and other people, and that will be very important, I think, in this legal contest.
Did you get the impression that you needed to grovel before the board to explain your loyalties and apologies?
Well, I felt it was important to be honest before the board, and I felt it was important to talk to the board about what I believe in, what I want to do with the Democratic Party. I wasn't aware that required tears. I wasn't aware that required getting on your knees, but the notion that some witnesses painted that I demanded that the board reinstate me, I've been involved in politics and making arguments for a long period of time. A lot of people in your community have heard me make a lot of arguments over a period of time about why I ought to be elected to something. I don't demand that people do anything. I make my case. What I heard today was a party that can't think of any reason to distinguish me from the others, so they fell back on the old-fashioned, it just didn't come across as well as they did. Well, I don't buy that.
What do you make of Redding Pitt's statement? He said, I wanted him to do better, and I hope one day he is a part of the party. What did you make of that?
Well, I think that, I have great respect for each of the witnesses who testified today, but I think we all know what happened here. There are some very influential people in the Alabama Democratic Party who weren't happy with me when I was a Democratic congressman. They weren't happy with me before the Affordable Care Act. And this is an opportunity for them to score one more victory, more power to them. At the end of the day, though, instead of a room full of people, by the way, of the people on the executive board, one of them actually lives in County Commission District 1. I want the voters in County Commission District 1, or at least the Democratic voters in County Commission District 1, to decide who their representative ought to be, who their commissioner ought to be. That's all this is about. Ultimately, what they are saying is let's take the vote away from the people and let's let a committee in Birmingham that consists of only one person who lived in the district decide this issue. That's not fair, it's not right. And for people who spend so much time saying on your stations how important the right to vote is, and who spend so much time on your stations talking about the importance corners of the democratic process, for them to then come into court today and say, oh, it's not such a big deal. He can wait several years to run for office. It's not such a big deal. When you are suppressing someone's right to participate in the political process, it's a big deal, whether it's the vote or whether it's a candidacy.
But do you think that their argument running as a party, they don't argue that you can't run, they just say you can't run as a Democrat?
Well, I choose to run as a Democrat. I always thought in politics you run as what you are. You know, for me to run as a Republican when I left the Republican Party wouldn't be too honest. I'm running as a Democrat because that's where I am now. But ultimately, whether I'm a Democratic nominee ought to be up to roughly 5,000, 6,000 people who are going to be voting in CC1.
Now, for Reddick to be one of those people who did support you before and then say that he wouldn't have voted for you if you didn't pass the motion, how do you react to that?
You know, Redding is under a lot of pressure as someone who's still an elected official of the Democratic, or still, I'm sorry, an appointed official of the Democratic Party. I understand that all the witnesses today, they are very responsible to the Alabama Democratic Party. They're officers of the party, Dr. Davis, even Representative Holmes, Representative Knight. We knew it'd be like pulling teeth today. You know, you're asking people who are very connected to the Democratic Party in the sense that they're current officials to sort of speak honestly without sort of ducking the question or dodging the question. A lot of ducking and dodging today. But look, this is a legal process. I had a chance to have my day in court. Ultimately, regardless of what happens in this process, I want to continue to be involved in politics in this community. I'm going to be coming back to this community seeking their support. If I can't do it in a Democratic race, I'll be doing it in the mayor's race in 4 years. As much as they want to, they can't stop me from making my case. But it's important for me to defend the proposition that voters ought to decide. As much as I hear the Democratic Party talking about the right to vote, right to vote is enormously important. So is the right to participate in the process by running as a candidate. So we've made our case before the judge. I'll just end on this point. Go back to the one thing I take from this hearing. For 3.5 hours, you never heard an argument as to why I'm different from all the other people who came before this process, other than, well, they made the case and he didn't. That would sound like pretext in an administrative hearing. It would sound like pretext in an employment case, and it's pretext today.